Assalamu alaikum, this is Pasha, the author of The Double Cross. I told you I would get to the issue of the Jews in my last pod, and here we go. Inshallah, I'll share this with those you know, and perhaps the next black man or woman that steps up to speak about the Jews will do so with knowledge and not have to tuck their tail, backtrack, or eat their words. In the first 2 decades of the 19th century in Germany, the Jew was a cultural thing. They made up only 1% of the population. They created a lie mythology to stir consciousness nationally and worldly that the European Jew will bring salvation to the world. This is what initiated the hands-off European Jews supersede all others. And this was created not by the Jews themselves, but by the Zionists. Zionism is not a religion or race. It is a political movement to insert Europeans that became Jewish into the biblical narrative they actually have nothing to do with. Most Zionists are atheists. They do not practice the Jewish faith, nor the faith of the Hebrews as handed down from the prophets. Europeans becoming Jewish is no different than me becoming a Muslim. Doing so and following the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad did not make me an Arab, as he was. The movement to place Europeans in Palestine was hatched by Theodore Herzl and the British in April of 1939 as a result of the pre-planned next war, World War II. So the war would be created in order to get the U.S. involved and to give Europeans a foothold in the oil-rich Middle East. The U.S. would be the new European settlement's biggest protector and builder, along with Germany, Britain, and France. They would steal, murder, and lie to take over Palestinian land, just like they did here with the Native Americans, the Native Indians, and box them in on reservations, then claim the entire country for themselves. The Balfour Declaration of November 1917 was a letter between Arthur Balfour and Lionel W. Rothschild's representative of the English Federation of Zionists. The declaration was written by Lord Alfred Milner and was not sent through the House of Commons for a vote. Genetically, Eastern European Jews are the descendants of the Turkish paramountcy, not Turks, but Poles, Armenians, Slavs, Mongols, Nordics. They descend from the Khazars, a diverse group of barbarian tribes under the Kogan. In 1740 AD, he decided to convert his clans to Judaism to prevent being under the rulership of Islam by the Khalifa or the church by the emperor. The Khazars lived in Lower Russia between the Black and Caspian Sea. The empire was broken apart in the 13th century by the Mongols. Some stayed in Russia, but the majority moved into what is now the Balkans, Eastern Europe, Lithuania, Poland, Hungary, Armenia, and Germany. The name Rothschild came from the red shield symbol of the Khazars in Eastern Europe. There is no such thing as a Jewish race. Let me say that again. There is no such thing as a Jewish race. Jews, Hebrews, just like Muslims and Christians, come in all kinds of shapes, sizes, and nations. The white supremacist doctrine is cloaked in this claim as the only in being white or European. Hitler rounded them all up, all over Europe, for extermination because they were not a pure race. And let me say that again. Hitler rounded them all up, all over Europe for extermination because they were not a pure race. That's a historical fact. A fact almost no one focuses on. They were not seen as pure Europeans. So even though they looked white and they lived in European countries, Hitler did not view them as white or as pure. So, what contaminated them? So much so that he routed them up, like I said, from all over the European nations. What contaminated them? The answer is the ancestry of the Hebrew is black. Hitler and white men in general have tried everything under the sun to defeat this. They've used junk sciences. They've used experimentations. They've tried lies, witchcraft, and even murder. The Anti-Defamation League of Bana Rif was formed in the U.S. in 1913 and served as an intelligence unit. It was initially formed to protect New York mobster Meyer Lansky, born Miles Sergejewski Grado, a Russian Jew. It also fundraises for the underground Israeli terrorists in Palestine. Attorney Sigmund Livingston set up the committee to brand anyone that comes close to attacking a Jew anti-Semitic. And I've already told you that Europeans are not Semitic. The committee was given the formal title of the Anti-Defamation League. Its secret motto is create the problems and offer the solutions. These people have diabolical, sadistic minds. Their sole purpose is to rule the entire world. The ideal of the Holocaust was created long before it was actually implemented. The very same people that backed Hitler, supplied Hitler weapons, and funded Hitler were also the very same people that went to war against Hitler and defeated him, mainly the U.S. and Britain. In the end, they double-crossed Hitler and sacrificed millions of people's lives, those they deemed unworthy. The soldiers, civilian women and children, in order to set up what you see now as Israel in Arab land. Palestine was given that name in the 2nd century by Roman invaders. Its original name is Judea, and its people, now Arabs, are mixed with the black blood of the descendants that sat among the multitudes with the Messiah and his disciples. This plan to set up a white nation among people of color was conceived during the First World War. A Polish underground fighter named Moshe Sneh went to Palestine before the war, then returned in 1945 as the leader of the mass movement of Polish Jews to Palestine. In a secret meeting among devoted Zionists of the Red Army, he gave a speech and is quoted as have said, "The unique opportunity to have come to snatch Palestine in the Middle East from the Arabs in Britain." Now remember, Britain controlled the Middle East. He stated how the whole non-Jewish world had to be made to feel guilty for the Holocaust, together with the Nazis. That this must be portrayed as the greatest Christian crime against the Jewish people. A intensive propaganda program will be launched, and all publishing houses, all Jewish publishing houses, and press under Jewish ownership and control had already been made aware to propagate the story of Jewish suffering. The U.S. must be made the greatest reservoir of European Jews in order to influence American politics, because the U.S. will become the decisive world power. Question: this memo was leaked decades ago, but as you see, is it not true? Has not this already happened? We've seen propaganda effectively used January 6th by Trump, and millions still believe it today that his election was stolen. Major Jaworski recorded this speech in May of 1965. After doing so, his home was broken into and all the information was stolen. He moved to Australia. For some of you, the name of the ex-prime minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin, won't mean anything. but he was labeled a great peacemaker in the world's view. And yet he was violently assassinated because in truth, he was not a peacemaker at all. According to Israeli historian Naim Galandi, Rabin was a political murderer of both Jews and Arabs when the circumstances called for it. He was a member of Paul March, the Action Squads. In November 1940, this Action Squad blew up the refugee ship Petra in Haifa Harbor because in the first part of 1940, Britain began to detain and deport from Palestine Jews who did not have the proper documentation. The Zionists decided to sabotage the ships rather than have them turned away. 250 Jews died in the explosion, along with an additional 1,000 from 3 other ships blown up by the Action Squad. The Arabs were blamed, and more sympathy was manipulated for the Jews. You should know that there is a difference between Jewish law and Hebrew law. European Jews' law, the reinvented Talmud, reads like a Nazi declaration. In Korit 6b, in Zuk Hamah 61, it says, just the Jews are humans. The non-Jews are not humans. They are cattle. The non-Jews and all non-whites have been created to serve the Jews as slaves. Now ask yourself, how is it that refugees left over from their thing with Hitler with nothing have now taken over complete control of a country, walled it off, has nuclear weapons, a standing army, advanced technology, and they prevent the people that have lived there for thousands of years from moving without a pass. This is the double cross. A memo leaked to the public in 1949 from the U.S. State Department states that the Third World will fulfill its major function as a source of raw materials and a market for industrial and capitalist societies. The third world should not be allowed to delink from economic domination and run their own economy for the benefit of their own people. This explains why the richest continent in the world, our homeland, except for the northern part, is controlled by not the people who live there, by dictators and CIA operatives that create confusion and war and perpetuate it for decades. This is why a nation rich in everything, gold, diamonds, and minerals, don't even have clean drinking water. Henry Kissinger, a German Jew, an advisor to the president, called social and economic reforms in third world countries a virus that, if allowed to thrive, will infect a much wider area. The more terror used against leaders and their people attempting to remove themselves from their dependency on European bankers, institutions, and way of life, the less likely anyone else would try to exit. The word democracy is the key. Understand that Europeans were poor, starving in the dark ages, plague-ridden nations. They discovered our homeland and our wealth, and we have been feeding them ever since. If we would wake up and stop feeding them and start feeding ourselves, then you will see a drastic change in our condition. You should know that this was the first issue raised by the Jew, how to supplement themselves with the wealth from our nation. Madeleine Albright is also a German Jew. She was the Secretary of State. She was behind the death of Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Henry Kissinger's plan for the control of the third world black nations was the reason behind the creation of the United Nations and this worthless world army that has gone to many black nations to keep the peace, but spent the majority of their time raping young black women and girls. Conflicts are created and engineered to overthrow democratic black governments around the globe. If you look at all the world war-torn countries on our homeland closely, you will see the white man, the white U.S. State Department, British intelligence, or their ambassadors behind the scenes. And with the white man's World Health Organization, you see how they done that? How they cloak that? World Health. With this slogan, sterilization, population control, and the poisoning of our people is easy. The creation of the AIDS virus, Ebola, and other diseases strategically placed where the animals live, the savages, has made the acceptance of any sudden disease where people of color live, poor people, acceptable. This State Department memo that was leaked goes on to address the scheme of creating a welfare system while destroying alternative and access to economic systems. It states that when the desired dependency has been affected and achieved, suddenly and effectively dismantle the welfare support, creating a vast underclass without hope or help. We've seen this plan work with President Reagan and his campaign against the welfare queens, and again with Bill Clinton, who cut benefits and created the welfare work law, eliminating millions for support. The poverty rate soars. So listen to understand what it means to be a pawn in the game. Without knowledge, the will to power, this is all we will ever be. Pawns. This is the double cross. Assalamu alaikum.